Hello, everyone. My name is Nadeem Ali. I'm here with Dylan Nelson, Logan Flake, Ethan Campana, and Brian O'Leary. And we're going to be talking about managing quarantine. Now, this is going to be a podcast style, so we're going to be interjecting here and there, but hope you enjoy the video. So just to give a brief outline, we're going to be going over the COVID-19 virus, of course, and providing information on that. Going over campus resources at Purdue, um, general health, wellness, mental health, staying active, and going to have a survey at the end for questions and also just feedback on the presentation as a whole.
So just to kind of start out with some information about COVID-19, just some basic information, but also mostly just kind of common misconceptions that I think a lot of people are hearing about it. And the first one kind of most generally is in younger people thinking that they can't get sick, that this is exclusively a problem that old people kind of have to deal with. And that's just not true. While it might be true that older people are more at risk to actually get like severely ill to the point that they might have to go to the hospital or that they might even pass away as a result of the virus, that doesn't mean that young people aren't getting the virus. And that's a really important thing, is to just contract it in general. So according to some CDC numbers, as of April 21st, it updates, as regularly as it can, the numbers on their site. Of the 5,903, 780 documented cases of COVID-19 in America that they had, 213,558 were found in people aged 18 to 44. So that's a lot younger than I think a lot of people expect. You think like maybe 60s onward into the 70s, but this is people, our age, we're in that age group that are, contracting it. So while hospitalization rates in older people might be higher, I mean, we're still contracting the virus, people our age.
I think it's also important to remember that just because the hospitalization rates are lower, people are still getting hospitalized. I mean, just because you're young doesn't mean, oh, I'll get it and I'll recover immediately. It's still a very serious illness that could lead to hospitalization, even if you're young.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, and you can't forget that people with weakened immune systems are also at risk. So that's like, you could be a young person with a weakened immune system and you could like severely get ill by COVID-19.
Definitely. And I think kind of the next generalization, kind of common misconception is, a young person might go out for a night on the town or whatever you can do, I guess, right now, find a way, I guess, and get back home and feel fine and think, okay, and then wake up the next morning and feel fine and be, okay, well, I escaped, getting the virus, I'm fine. Well, symptoms can take anywhere from 2 to 14 days, so 2 whole weeks to kind of make themselves known. So you could, end up with the virus and not even really know about it until 2 weeks down the line. So feeling fine doesn't necessarily mean that you don't have COVID-19. It just might take some time for the symptoms to kind of make themselves known. And obviously, the more that you go out right now, I mean, the higher the chances that you're going to end up with it. And then, that 2-week time frame will just set itself, and you might not even know until, it could be finals week or whatever it might be.
It's true. And then you have somebody like myself who has asthma. I mean, you become more susceptible every single time that you just leave the house or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Now, something important to note with this also is in those 14 days, it's not like, oh, it's just going to take that long for me to get sick. You are contaminated at that point. So in the 14 days where you have no symptoms, you are infecting everybody you come in contact with.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
So kind of just speaking to the severity of the virus in younger people, people I think that are our age kind of think if they get it, this was, really common early on when this was happening. Oh, it'll just be like a cold for me. It won't be that big of a deal. I've had colds before, maybe even had the flu before. I'll just stay home and I'll be fine. And that might be true. Symptoms do vary. Like some people don't even have symptoms at all and kind of just get tested and find out they have it, and it just goes away without ever having symptoms. But that isn't always the case. There's still a risk that the symptoms can be anywhere from flu-like all the way to, much more severe. You're in the hospital and could be even fatal, even for younger people. So it's really just a matter of if that's a risk you want to take to kind of play the odds and think, oh, if I get it, then I'll just be fine and it'll just be a cold. Whereas it could end up, even if you are completely healthy and don't have, you're not immunocompromised or you don't have some kind of, other condition, pre-existing condition, you could still end up getting really sick. So especially with finals week coming up and things like that, you just kind of have to gauge whether or not that's a risk that you want to take.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like I'll be the first to admit that, especially during the mid weeks of March and the early March, I was kind of one of those people with that mindset of, oh, I'm young. It doesn't really matter if I get it. I'll just take it. But like in all reality, it's not really about us. It's about those who are most susceptible to it, and especially those of the older age range with some immunocompromised conditions. So you always have to be mindful of that.
Right. Yeah, and that's kind of what this slide ends up covering is, if I get sick, then I'll just go out like I always do if I'm sick, for school, especially if you have, even some people with like the flu will still go to class because they think they need to or whatever. So I'll just go out because it's whatever, it's not that big of a deal. As long as I can get in my car and go somewhere, if I'm healthy enough to do that, then I can do it. Well, that's just irresponsible because it's not just about you at this point. This isn't just like a cold or even the flu that we're dealing with. It's something that's much more, it can spread a lot easier. So the World Health Organization has found that on average, people with COVID-19 can spread it to upwards of 2 to even like 2.5 people. And the flu only averages about 1.3. So, I mean, that might not seem like a very big difference, but when you spread that out over how many people have, gotten the virus at this point, it can even just a difference of one person, spreading, or like one extra spread person per person. That's a huge difference if you multiply it out over all these cases. So you can't just think of yourself in this situation. You have to think of others, especially people that, might be immunocompromised or have these pre-existing conditions where this could just be much worse for them than it would be for you.
Yeah, so it's also really important to kind of know what the symptoms are to this COVID-19. They are very flu-like, but the main difference and the thing you really want to look out for is this shortness of breath you might be experiencing. That doesn't mean you necessarily have COVID-19 or the coronavirus. It could just be allergies, could be the flu, but the thing to be mindful of if you start experiencing these symptoms, this shortness of breath, cough, fatigue, weakness, or exhaustion, you want to be aware of it and like basically instantly put yourself into like self-quarantine to kind of monitor yourself and make sure that's not getting worse. So you want to wait the full 14-day period because worst case scenario, you have COVID-19 and the last thing you want to do is spread it to somebody who could, potentially die as a result of contracting it.
Right. Yeah. And it's also really important if you've been around somebody that has contracted it, or you've been in an area where there's been a lot of cases, to be really mindful even of more minor symptoms because, you've been around the virus now. So you might not have it still. It might still be a cold, even if you've been around somebody that's had it, but it's important to be more mindful in that situation.
Right. It's way better to be safe than to be sorry, especially when, lives are on the line.
Agreed.
So this is something we've already alluded to, but pre-existing conditions, people with pre-existing conditions are at the higher end of the risk of the spectrum for this disease. And these pre-existing conditions can be compromised immune system, as Nadim said. It could be asthma, severe asthma, diabetes, severe obesity, lung, kidney, liver issues. There could be a variety of different things. I know for one that for the first time in years, I didn't go to my family's Easter dinner because even though I've been in quarantine for about a month now, I wasn't about to risk potentially giving it to my dad who has high blood pressure. So you just got to be mindful that, like we already said, people with these conditions are at risk, and the last thing you want to do is put them in a potential fatal position. And there's a really good self-checker from the CDC website. So if you think you might have these symptoms and you think you might have COVID-19, go ahead and check it out on this link below. Basically, you just follow along to putting your symptoms in and testing information in here, and it kind of tells you that you may or may not have COVID-19, or the potential severity of the case that you might have, and if you should pursue medical treatment, which is very important.
Absolutely.
So practical steps to avoiding the virus, of course, basic tips from the CDC is washing your hands thoroughly and often, or using hand sanitizer if you can't wash your hands. Covering your face and nose with a mask, especially if you're on public settings. Not a lot of places are open anymore, but if you're going to the grocery store to pick up necessities, you kind of want to make sure you're covering your face, just because you're going to be walking past people who might be coughing or sneezing or something like that. Cleaning and disinfecting frequently touched surfaces. That can be anywhere in your home. If you're going outside and you open a door, you kind of want to make sure that you're touching like clean surfaces. And especially once you get back into your home, if you've been outside, you want to make sure that anything you've touched on your way inside gets wiped down and disinfected. Keeping distance, social distancing is really important. The CDC recommends at least 6 feet between yourself and others. And this kind of prevents, if they're coughing or if you're coughing, it prevents the potential of you getting infected from what they like cough out or sneeze out. And the most importantly, as none of you are probably surprised about, is stay home if possible. Quarantine is the best way to prevent people from contracting this disease.
So avoiding the virus is one way to, stay healthy in these times, but you also need to be aware of your physical and mental health. We are obviously in quarantine. We can't do much, and we don't know exactly how long quarantine is going to last for. We're getting rumors of like maybe in the summer or early next year, but we need to still find ways to be physically active and, mentally well. Luckily, here at Purdue, we have like 2 major, I think, avenues for us, particularly to help us stay physically active. So we have the CoRec, which is releasing home workout videos for you to stay active in your home. So you don't go out, don't buy weights, or try to go to a gym. I think gyms are closed. Just find ways to be active while you're quarantining. And then mental wellness, because obviously there's people who are, I would say, more active and, sports people or just sociable people who are now having trouble because they can't, I guess, get that physical face-to-face interaction anymore because of course, COVID-19 and quarantining. So we have the Purdue Counseling, which is over-the-line services that you can just talk to a counselor whenever, if highly trained professional, get a therapist just to help you out if you're feeling dark and feeling, sad or depressed during these times. So mental health is a big thing, especially now that we're in quarantine, because quarantine is actually a very stressful time. I know for us seniors, if we don't have a job, our jobs have been put on hold, or job search is strained now that it's completely online. You can't really get that face-to-face interaction with a recruiter. It's just over the phone. You're getting all this stress and panic. So the CDC recommends a couple things for you to like calm down and just kind of relax. So take breaks, walk around your block or your yard. Just get used to a different space. Take care of your body as well. Working out has proved to improve your happiness, releases dopamine and stuff like that. Stretch, meditate. I know meditating has like a certain stigma that it's like baloney or whatever. Just take a break of just sit there and, do whatever, like listen to music or whatever. Communicate and connect with others. So obviously we have social media, but that can only go so far. Maybe call a relative, communicate with cousins, communicate with friends over FaceTime, something just to get that daily connection. I know that during quarantine, you can kind of just like end up in a hole to somewhere, just working and not really going, since you can't really go out see your friends. So you just end up in your room all day and be constantly aware of your feelings. So don't like push your feelings away. Don't be, I'm depressed, and then be like, no, I'm not depressed. Once quarantine's over, I'll go back to my usual self, because once again, we don't know how long quarantine's going to last. And you want to stay motivated, but don't push yourself too hard. So don't try to teach yourself a new skill every single day. Have like a weekly plan and kind of have a set routine that you can just go through to, gradually still learn during quarantine. They're not pushing yourself too hard. Make time to relax yourself.
Yeah, I totally agree. And
yeah.
I feel like, go ahead, Dean. Yeah.
I think we're going to be saying the same thing. It's just like I agree with all of this. Like even after all of this coronavirus and hysteria and everything kind of blows over, we're still going to have like a new normal where this may have to just keep more social distancing. But even on top of that, we can take these skills into just our daily routines, regardless of with that. We should be able to take a break, meditate, relax, just get away, and I mean, cold call family members and friends, even though we haven't talked to them in a while. That should be a part of our routine anyway, setting goals too.
Yeah, and I would just like to point out by how to be constantly aware of how you're feeling. Like these are really stressful times. Like people are losing job opportunities, people are losing scholarships, that kind of stuff, and so it's really easy to start feeling down on yourself. And even if you haven't had these problems in the past, like you start creeping up on you. So you should kind of like be aware of what your habits are nowadays. If you're feeling tired all the time, or if you're noticing that you're just eating more out of either boredom or just because the food's there, like it could indicate that you're suffering a decline in mental health. And like Ethan said previously, like CAPS is a resource that we pay for as students and that we should absolutely utilize. So if you're feeling down, or if you're feeling this fatigue all the time, or this naturally eating habit start, you should reach out to them, because they're offering free counseling services and phone calls and one-to-one individual meetings that could really help you get through this challenging time.
Yeah, and just one more thing really quick, another thing. We actually talked to one of the therapists at CAPS, and obviously kind of changing location is really practical. I mean, you can't really go that many places, but even just like changing a room might be helpful in terms of just getting a change of scenery. But something else you can also do, I mean, I don't know how it is for everybody, but I kind of like to do all of my work kind of in one space in my house. You can even just change up that like space a little bit and rearrange it. Or the therapist that we talked to said he just kind of changes like how far his seat is up or down, whether or not he's working. Just minor little subtle changes in your workspace are also very helpful. Even though it might not be something ginormous, they can still be kind of helpful for you mentally.
Yeah, it could even be as small as just like opening up the blinds, or maybe propping open a window.
Yeah, I can speak to that. When I got home, I definitely rearranged my room because I just needed something new.
Right.
Oh, for sure, yeah. Especially like I'm for one, I live in an apartment with 4 other guys, so the only privacy place I have is my room. So this is where I do all my schoolwork. This is where I sleep. So like naturally, I get pretty tired looking at these blank white walls, as you can see behind me. So I oftentimes open my blinds and open up my window, even though I normally, before this whole quarantine situation I'd never like propped up my blinds or even opened up my window. So it really does help.
So, next to keeping a good living space and all those things, staying active is one of the biggest things you can do to maintain a good mental health. Studies by the National Institute of Health, as well as many other journals, link good exercise to a good mental condition. So we're going to talk a little bit about things you can do at home that can keep you exercising. Now, the big thing to remember hang on, stay on that slide for a moment. So a big thing about working out or exercising at all is if you don't enjoy doing it, you're not going to do it consistently. You're going to stop doing it because it sucks. So when you're picking something to do to exercise, don't think, oh, I need to become super marathon man or become a bodybuilder. Those things aren't essential. You're just doing what you need to do to stay active. So go ahead and go to the next slide. So the first thing we're going to talk about is cardio type exercises. And for most people, this is what I'd recommend as the best way to kind of stay active and stay healthy. It's important to stretch before you do any of these things, but this could be anything from running, cycling, skating. Usually swimming's included here, but I think it's pretty unlikely that you'll get access to a pool right now. If you do have access, that's great, but anything that gets you out. These things are particularly great if you do it outside. I know a lot of people like to run on treadmills or do indoor cycling, but it's really important to do these things and get outside when you can. That helps with a change of scenery and helps you feel less confined by the quarantine. When you are outside, though, make sure you wear a helmet when appropriate and obey traffic laws, because the last thing you want is to get injured and have to go to the hospital and be around a bunch of sick people. Go ahead.
Yeah, I totally agree with like everything you just said. I, for one, was not a big fan of cardio. I'm just not like really big fan of cardio because I used to go to the gym all the time, just do much strength training. But now that all the gyms are closed and you can only do so much at home, you can only do so many push-ups in one day. Like I started going on runs, just around any trail I can find. And honestly, like now it's one of my favorite parts of the day because it gets me outside. I get to enjoy the fresh air. Like you said, nice change of scenery, and it's a good time. But it's really important that if you're not used to running, if you're not used to like doing any sort of cardio, that you need to start small. Like maybe just go for a walk or fast walk, start up, work towards that mile, and then you can go on from there. And it doesn't even have to be running, like you said, cycling, skating, it all counts.
Yeah, even just going out for a walk, anything that gets you outside, that counts.
Yeah.
Now, cardio, I think, is what most people will be most familiar with. When you're quarantined, this is a really good time to do some other kinds of exercises. You can see down below, I have some lists of bodyweight exercises that are a good place to begin if you are just getting started and don't really know much about bodyweight exercising. What I will say, particularly if you're somebody who has lifted weights before and does so at the gym, the more creative you get with how you're working out, I think the more fun you'll have with it. I discovered that those round 5-gallon cooler jugs of water weigh about 40 pounds, and so that's what I use for weights, and it's been really effective. And having come up with that solution, every time I work out, I'm like, wow, this is a really cool idea. I like this. Yeah, don't be afraid to get creative. Anything that you've got that's heavy can be an aid for working out. If you're less experienced, I would say bodyweight exercises are a really good place to start. There are things you can do right when you wake up or right when you go to sleep, or if you're getting tired of working at your desk. I have a couple listed here, but at the end of this section, I have a couple links there that can give you a place to start about learning more exercises. I know non-cardio workouts can be a little intimidating, particularly for somebody who's never done it before. So it's important to use the internet as a resource and text some of your friends who might know, use them as a resource. There's lots of ways that you can learn. So I really encourage you to do that. Yeah, so here there's a couple of links if you want a jumping off point to get started learning. There's some studies about the benefits of working out, and then just some information about stretching or working out in general. And they can help you get some more information.
I guess this is a good time to have another shout out for the CoRec at-home workout videos, because they post a lot constantly. I think they're on like their 5th section, and each section consists of a variety of different workout videos, from intense cardio or videos that actually include weights if you actually own at-home weights. So go ahead and give that a look too if you want to start somewhere. It's nice seeing people do the workout with you. It makes you feel good.
Absolutely, and we also want to make sure that we give another shout out to CAPS as well. Definitely helped us with the process of putting this little presentation podcast style for you all together. Thank you again for watching. We're gonna have a survey attached to this and link to the video. So if you could please take that survey. Let us know your thoughts. Also, be sure to make sure that we have all of the links that we mentioned in this podcast in the survey too, so you'll be able to use all the things that we taught today. So hope that helps for sure. Thank you again.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Bye, everybody.